Let's be honest, the moment she starts feeling something real for you, something shifts. And it's not what you expect. She doesn't get closer. She pulls away, and that silence you feel, it's not rejection. It's tension, it's fear, it's the quiet war between what she feels and what she's trying to protect. You see, when a woman is only casually interested, she's easy, light, predictable. She texts back fast. She laughs freely. There's no weight behind her actions because there's nothing to lose. But when her emotions start getting involved, when you cross that invisible line from just another guy to someone who could actually affect here, everything changes. Suddenly, she's slower to reply, not because she doesn't care, but because she cares too much. She overthinks every word, every pause, every reaction. She reads into things you didn't even realize you did. And instead of leaning in, she instinctively creates distance because distance feels safer than vulnerability. This is the part most men misunderstand. You think attraction should look like consistency, like constant attention, like obvious effort. But real emotional investment doesn't behave like that. It introduces hesitation. It introduces doubt. It makes her question herself in ways she never had to before. And here's the truth you were never told. A woman who is falling for you is far more dangerous to herself than a woman who isn't, because now she can lose something. Now she can get hurt. Now you matter. So what does she do? She tests the space between you, not with games, but with absence. She wants to see if you notice, if you chase, if you panic, if you change, because in her mind, your reaction to her distance reveals more truth than your behavior when everything is easy. Anyone can be charming when things are smooth, but how you respond when she pulls back, that's where she finds out who you really are. And while you're sitting there confused, wondering why she's acting cold, she's watching closely. Not your words, but your stability. Do you become needy? Do you start overexting? Do you try to force her back into the version of herself that felt comfortable to you? Or do you remain grounded, calm, unaffected on the surface? Because the man who stays centered when she creates distance is the man who feels safe to fall for. And safety is everything. But don't mistake this for manipulation. It's not about control. It's about emotional self-preservation. She's trying to slow down something inside her that feels like it's moving too fast. She's trying to protect her peace, her heart, her sense of control. And the more she feels you slipping into her thoughts, the more she tries to step back. It's a paradox. Most men fail to understand. The closer she feels internally, the further she may move externally. And if you don't recognize this pattern, you'll react the wrong way. You'll push when you should pause. You'll chase when you should observe. You'll speak when silence would have worked in your favor. But if you can see through it, if you can stay composed while she's battling her own emotions, you become something rare in her world. Not just a man she's attracted to, but a man she can trust with the parts of herself she doesn't show easily. And that's where everything begins to change. You feel it, don't you? That shift in her energy that doesn't quite make sense. One day she's warm, open, almost effortless, and the next she's distant, controlled, like she's holding something back, and your instinct tells you something is wrong. But what if nothing is wrong? And this is exactly what happens when something is finally right. Let's go deeper than what most people are willing to admit. When a woman begins to fall for you, she doesn't just feel excitement, she feels exposure. It's like standing without armor in a world where she's learned to protect herself at all costs. And the more she likes you, the more she realizes you now have the power to affect her mood, her thoughts, even her peace of mind. That realization alone is enough to make her step back, because control matters to her more than you think. Not control over you, but control over herself. She doesn't want to be the one who gets attached first. She doesn't want to be the one who feels more. And most importantly, she doesn't want to feel like she needs you. So, when those emotions begin to rise, her instinct isn't to lean into them. It's to manage them, to slow them down, to create space where she can breathe again. And that space, it looks like distance to you, but to her, it feels like survival. This is where most men fail the test without even realizing there was one. You start questioning her, asking what changed, trying to pull reassurance out of her. But the more you push for clarity, the more pressure she feels, and pressure kills emotional safety. It makes her feel like she's being rushed into something she's still trying to understand herself. So she pulls back even more, not because she's losing interest, but because she's overwhelmed by it. And here's something most men never see coming. A woman who is unsure about you will move toward you for validation. But a woman who is genuinely falling for you will sometimes move away to regain control. That difference is everything, because when she's unsure, she needs you to prove something. But when she's falling, she needs herself to understand something. And during that process, she watches you closely. Not in an obvious way, not in a way that feels like a test you can prepare for, but in subtle, quiet moments. She notices if your energy changes, if your confidence drops, if your attention becomes desperate instead of grounded, because desperation signals instability, and instability makes her feel unsafe to fully open. But when you remain consistent, not in chasing her, but in who you are, you send a message without saying a word. You tell her that her distance doesn't shake you, that you're not dependent on her reactions, that you're still the same man she started feeling something for, and that is what slowly lowers her guard. You have to understand, she's not looking for perfection. She's looking for emotional strength, for presence, for a sense that if she does allow herself to fall deeper, she won't lose herself in the process. So she creates space, and inside that space, she observes not whether you can impress her, but whether you can handle her uncertainty without collapsing into it. Because the man who can sit in that silence without panic is the man who becomes unforgettable. And this is where it gets even more uncomfortable for you, because her distance starts triggering something inside you. Questions you didn't have before, doubts you weren't feeling. You start replaying conversations, analyzing her tone, wondering if you did something wrong. And without realizing it, you begin to chase clarity instead of maintaining presence. That shift, she feels it instantly. Because when your energy changes from calm to questioning, from grounded to seeking reassurance, it tells her something she can't ignore. You're becoming emotionally reactive. And the moment she senses that her guard doesn't drop, it rises. Not because she wants to push you away, but because she's trying to protect herself from instability. You have to understand something most men never grasp. When a woman is falling for you, she becomes extremely sensitive to your emotional state. Not what you say, but what you radiate. If your confidence starts depending on her behavior, she feels the weight of that. And instead of feeling safe, she feels responsible. And responsibility, especially early on, is something she will resist. So she pulls back further. And now you're caught in a loop. She distances herself to regain control. You react to that distance. She senses your reaction and creates even more space. And just like that, something that was growing naturally begins to collapse under pressure. But here's the truth that changes everything. Her distance is not the problem. Your reaction to it is because distance in this phase is natural. It's part of her processing emotions that feel unfamiliar, intense, and slightly out of her control. But when you meet that distance with anxiety, you confirm her deepest fear that getting closer to you means losing emotional stability. And that's something she won't risk. So, what does the man who understands this do differently? He doesn't chase her silence. He doesn't interrogate her behavior. And he definitely doesn't try to force things back to how they were. Instead, he does something far more powerful. He leans back into himself. He maintains his rhythm, his focus, his sense of direction. He allows her space without making it feel like absence. And most importantly, he doesn't let her temporary withdrawal dictate his emotional state, because he understands that attraction isn't built in moments of comfort alone. It's built in moments of uncertainty, moments where she doesn't know exactly where she stands, but she feels that you're solid regardless. That kind of presence creates something rare: curiosity, respect, and eventually trust. Because when she sees that her distance doesn't break you, doesn't shake you, doesn't turn you into someone needy or reactive, something shifts inside her. She starts to relax. She starts to feel safe again. And slowly, without announcement, without explanation, she begins to come back. Not because you chased her, but because you didn't. And that's the part that most men struggle to accept. Doing less often creates more, not in a manipulative way, not as a tactic, but as a reflection of emotional control, of self respect, of understanding that not every moment needs to be filled, fixed, or forced. Because the man who can stay centered while everything around him feels uncertain becomes the one she can't stop thinking about, not because he demanded her attention, but because he never lost himself trying to keep it. Now, here's where the dynamic quietly flips, and most men don't even notice it happening. The moment you stop reacting to her distance, the moment you stop chasing answers and start standing firm in your own emotional space, she begins to feel something unexpected: the absence of pressure. And that absence does something powerful to her mind because she was prepared for you to lean in harder. She expected the texts asking what's wrong, the subtle neediness, the shift in your tone trying to pull her back. She was ready to defend her space. But when that pressure never comes, her defenses don't know what to do. They soften, not instantly, not dramatically, but slowly, almost invisibly. And in that quiet space, something else begins to grow. Her curiosity about you deepens because now you're no longer predictable. You're no longer reacting in ways she's used to seeing from other men. You're not trying to control the outcome. You're not trying to secure her attention. You're simply stable, and stability is rare. It's something she can feel even when you're not speaking. So she starts to lean back in, but carefully. Maybe it's a message that feels lighter than before. Maybe it's her checking in without a clear reason. Maybe it's her energy softening just enough for you to notice. These are small signals, but they matter because they show that she's re-engaging on her own terms without being pushed. And this is where patience becomes your greatest advantage. Because if you rush this moment, if you suddenly flood her with attention the second she steps closer, you undo everything. You bring back the pressure she just escaped from. You remind her of the emotional weight she was trying to manage, and she retreats again. But if you stay grounded, if you match her energy without overwhelming it, you create something incredibly powerful: balance. And balance allows attraction to breathe. You see, real connection doesn't grow in intensity alone. It grows in rhythm, in the space between interactions, in the moments where nothing is forced, but everything feels intentional. And when she starts to feel that rhythm with you, she begins to trust it. She begins to trust you, not because you said the right things, but because you didn't disrupt the emotional flow when things became uncertain. That's what separates a man she feels for a man she chooses. Because feeling something is easy, choosing someone requires safety. It requires the belief that if she opens up, if she allows herself to fall deeper, she won't be met with chaos, pressure, or emotional inconsistency. And right now, whether you realize it or not, she's deciding that every time she pulls back and you don't chase, every time she softens and you don't overwhelm, every time you remain centered while everything feels unclear, you're answering a question she hasn't asked out loud. Is this man safe to fall for? And your actions are speaking louder than anything you could ever say. So don't rush this. Don't try to define it too early. Don't force clarity where emotions are still unfolding, because the more you allow this process to happen naturally, the more she moves toward you, not out of pressure, but out of genuine desire. And that kind of desire, it doesn't fade easily. It builds quietly, deeply, until one day her distance disappears. Not because you demanded closeness, but because she no longer feels the need to protect herself from it. There's something even deeper happening beneath all of this, something she will never fully explain to you, but you will feel if you're paying attention. When a woman begins to fall for you, she starts imagining a version of you that exists beyond the present moment, not just who you are now, but who you could become in her life. And that vision, it's Powerful. But it's also dangerous because the moment she sees potential, she also sees risk. She starts asking herself questions she never had to ask before. What if I get attached and this changes? What if he's not who I think he is? What if I lose myself in this? And those questions don't come from a place of doubt about you alone. They come from her past, her experiences, the parts of her that learned the hard way not to trust too quickly. So even while she's feeling drawn to you, even while there's a part of her that wants to move closer, there's another part pulling her back, reminding her to slow down, to stay in control, to not let her emotions take over completely. That internal conflict creates distance, not clean logical distance, but emotional hesitation, mixed signals, moments where she seems fully present, followed by moments where she feels just out of reach. And if you don't understand what's happening, you'll take it personally. You'll think she's losing interest. You'll think she's unsure about you. But the truth is far more complex. She's trying to make sure her feelings are real, because attraction can be instant, chemistry can be effortless, but trust takes time. And when she realizes that what she feels for you is moving beyond surface level attraction, she becomes careful, very careful. She watches not just how you treat her, but how you move through your own life, how you handle stress, how you respond to uncertainty, whether your actions match your words, whether your presence feels consistent or conditional. Because she's not just deciding if she likes you, she's deciding if she can rely on you. And that decision doesn't happen in moments of intensity. It happens over time in the small details most men overlook. This is why trying to impress her at this stage doesn't work. Grand gestures, constant attention, over-explaining your feelings, none of that creates the security she's looking for. In fact, it can do the opposite. It can make everything feel rushed, unstable, forced. What she needs instead is clarity through consistency, not intensity. Consistency. She needs to feel that who you are today is who you'll be tomorrow, that your energy doesn't spike when she's close and drop when she pulls away, that you're not driven by her reactions, but grounded in your own direction. And when she starts to feel that something changes inside her, the fear begins to quiet. The need to pull away becomes less urgent, because now getting closer to you doesn't feel like losing control. It feels like gaining stability, and that's when her distance fades. Not all at once, not dramatically, but in subtle ways. She becomes more present, more open, more willing to let you see parts of her she was holding back, but only because you didn't rush her there, only because you allowed her to arrive at that place on her own. And that's what makes it real, because anything forced can be questioned. But what she chooses freely, what she builds emotionally without pressure, that's what she trusts. And once she trusts it, she stops running from it. And this is the moment most men never reach. Not because they couldn't, but because they didn't have the patience to let it unfold. Because now her distance starts to disappear in a way that feels almost surreal. The same woman who once pulled back, who once felt just out of reach, begins to lean in, not cautiously, but willingly. Her energy becomes warmer, more consistent, more present. And what you notice isn't just her attention, it's her openness. She starts letting you see her. Not the surface level version she shows the world, but the real one. The one that thinks deeply, feels intensely, and doesn't let people in easily. She shares more. She listens differently. She invests in ways that don't feel forced or calculated. And here's the part that matters most. She does it because she chose to, not because you chased her, not because you convinced her, but because in every moment where she expected pressure, you gave her space. In every moment where she expected instability, you remained grounded. And in every moment where she tested the distance, you didn't lose yourself trying to close it. That consistency built something stronger than attraction. It built trust. And trust is what transforms a temporary connection into something lasting. But even here, even at this stage, most men make one final mistake. They relax too much, not in a healthy way, but in a way where they start abandoning the very qualities that brought her closer in the first place. They become overly comfortable. They stop leading their own life with purpose. They start centering everything around her presence. And slowly, the balance shifts again. Because the same emotional strength that made her feel safe is the same strength that must be maintained if you want that connection to grow. This doesn't mean being distant. It doesn't mean holding back. It means remembering who you were before you needed her validation. Because the truth is simple. Even if it's hard to accept, she didn't fall for you when you were chasing her. She fell for you when you were in control of yourself, when your life had direction, when your energy felt stable, not dependent. That's the version of you she trusts. That's the version of you she chose. So, if you want this to last, you don't evolve into someone new. You protect who you already were. You keep your standards, you keep your rhythm, you keep your sense of self intact no matter how close she gets. Because real attraction isn't about holding on tighter as things deepen, it's about staying grounded while everything around you grows. And when you understand that, when you truly live it, something powerful happens. She stops questioning the connection. She stops creating distance. She stops fighting her feelings because now being close to you doesn't feel like a risk anymore. It feels like the safest place she could be. So before you leave, ask yourself something real. When she pulled away, did you become someone she could trust or someone who needed her to stay? Answer that honestly in the comments. And if this hit deeper than you expected, like the video, subscribe and share it with someone who's been misreading the silence. Because sometimes distance isn't the end of something.